Welcome to Propaganda Loves You, the show that asks and answers the question, if Venezuelan drug runners are narco-terrorists, then what should we call the Sackler family? I'm Kodie, your host for this week, joined by Arthur and Joe.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Welcome back to Propaganda Loves You for our Thursday episode this week. On Tuesday, we talked quite a bit, actually, about ICE, the propaganda that they're using for recruitment, the recruitment tactics, as well as some recent spyware acquisition from Paragon, the Israeli commercial spyware group. So, from there, we kind of talked a little bit more about terrorism and how the tactics of counterterrorism are, returning to the United States in an effort to use that to deal with crime. We picked that conversation back up today, and that leads directly into our next major topic, which is the recent strike that the U.S. government did, or that the Department of War did against a Venezuelan ship off the coast of Venezuela in international waters. So that's where we're headed. And I think the last thing Joe mentioned, the number of Iraqi civilians that were killed in the Iraq War II, not for George H.W. Bush, and how that's kind of talked about. And so we're picking up the conversation from there.
In a more manageable, recent-ish perspective or whatever. The thing that gets me about recent, even like everything that's happened since 9/11, let's say, the events that happen in Western countries, like the 9/11 attacks, like the Charlie Hebdo attacks in France, those attacks that take place in Western countries that have large numbers of people are killed, for sure. Those get a lot of news. Those get a lot of headlines. Similar with the October 7th attack in Israel. And then you can compare those numbers to the retaliations that take place in response to those attacks. Over 1 million Iraqis died after we invaded Iraq. 3,000 Americans died on 9/11. Over 1 million Iraqis died after we invaded. Look at the numbers in Palestine. 1,200-ish people were killed on October 7th. There's over 20,000 children with permanent disabilities because of what Israel's been doing. There's over 60,000 dead. There's uncounted numbers of people buried in the rubble and trapped and uncounted. And the scale of comparison isn't even close. It's just totally out of proportion with anything that makes sense.
I guess what I was thinking when you were saying that is the thing that doesn't get talked about, or it almost is that same thing that Howard Zinn talked about, where it's mentioned, right? There's been 50,000 casualties, but then going on, right? It's something that's not talked about. But just going back to that thing, they're using that kernel of truth, whatever's causing those attacks that they can publicize, that they can promote, that they can always never forget, right? All of those things, that's what's in most people's minds, and that's what enables this strike on a boat. And I mean, a lot of people are obviously upset about this, but the whole strike on a boat and then trying to tie this to terrorism, to me, is just kind of insane. We've had a process for a very long time of being able to interdict drug runners coming to the United States. That's what the Coast Guard does, right? We have ways of doing this. And instead, before it was even coming to the U.S., it was just strike it while it was right off of the Venezuelan coast. And then saying, yeah, this is narco-terrorism. And we're going to continue to do this, I think is what Marco Rubio said, right? We murdered 11 people from Venezuela. And what? What's the justification for that? I could just picture the intel package that went up on that. And what justification is there for murdering 12 people when you could interdict or do something there, right? I don't know. But going into that topic.
It was called a civilian murder or something like that. It was, I forget who addressed it as such, but yeah.
I think I saw that. I'm trying to remember where that came from too, but yeah.
To tie, this boat stuff into kind of what y'all are saying earlier, with stuff, like it's obviously not just this like one-time instance right now that's going to get justified for, this strike. It goes back to like historical roots, and Venezuela in particular, like it dared, nationalize and socialize their oil wealth. And the US had like, failed coups in the past. And I think in like the 2010s, we put like sanctions on them. And obviously that causes like economic distraught, shortages of like food and medicine. And there's just an entire relationship here where it's like the great empire of, capital is punishing this like experiment of sovereignty and not recognizing it, wanting to control it. And it's all cloaked under this guise. But it's just this one news article right now that gets highlighted. And then it's like, let's look at this one moment. And is it justification for further action? And it's just an atrocity. It's like,
I was just going to mention like resources, like you were sort of alluding to, Arthur, like they'd nationalize their oil and stuff in Venezuela. I don't know if it's Venezuela or another South American country that has the lithium that Elon really wants.
yeah.
There are these precious metals that are needed for microprocessors and for better battery technology and all kinds of high-tech stuff. We need these precious minerals. Like our whole global infrastructure is really dependent on some limited resource extraction around the world. And it's why do you think the Democratic Republic of Congo is constantly in a state of genocide and internal war and stuff? They have tons and tons of resources that capitalists want, and they work very hard covertly to keep the region destabilized so that they can extract those resources cheaply using child labor, slave labor, whatever. And when they see a country trying to take control of their resources in a way that's democratic and supports the people who live there, not on our watch. They send somebody in. Happened in 1950, 1951 in Iran with Mossadegh and the British Petroleum Company. I say watch out for Burkina Faso in the near future, because that young leader in Burkina Faso is trying to do something similar for his people. And he's going to be, I think, the last person in Africa that did something, or not the last, but one of the big names was like Thomas Sankara or something like that. I think it was in the 1980s or something. Someone who tried to nationalize the resources in their country and got couped and assassinated. Happens all the time in Africa. Happens in South America and Central America all the time. But yeah, look out Burkina Faso in the near future for that reason specifically.
I remember reading too, like, remember Trump like was willing to reopen the negotiation to help Ukraine, but it was just like he had to sign the deal that we get the rights to the rare minerals or something that are locked away. It's like, it's happening now. Yeah.
And I just want to read a little bit more on this, just for anyone that wasn't kind of like tracking exactly what was going on with the U.S. There's an article from BBC. This came out 4 days ago. It's from Matt Murphy and Joshua Cheatham, I believe. But it's titled U.S. Strike on Venezuela Drug Boat. What do we know, and was it legal? A strike carried out by U.S. forces on a boat in the Caribbean Sea, which the White House says killed 11 drug traffickers, may have violated international human rights and maritime law, legal experts have told BBC. President Donald Trump announced on Tuesday that U.S. forces destroyed a vessel which he said had departed from Venezuela. He said the boat was operated by Tren de Agua cartel and carrying drugs bound for the U.S. U.S. defense officials have so far declined to offer details on the strike, footage of which Trump shared on Truth Social, including what legal authority they relied upon to justify it. BBC Verify reached out to a range of experts in international and maritime law, with several saying the U.S. may have acted illegally in attacking this vessel. The U.S. is not a signatory on the United Nations Conventions on Law of the Sea, but the U.S.'s military legal advisors had previously said that the U.S. should act in a manner consistent with its provisions. Under the convention, countries agree not to interfere with vessels operating in international waters. There are limited exceptions to this, which allow a state to seize a ship, such as hot pursuit, where a vehicle is chased from a country's waters into the high seas. Force can be used to stop a boat, but generally this should be non-lethal measures, Professor Luke Moffat of Queen's University Belfast said. But he added that the use of aggressive tactics must be reasonable and necessary in self-defense, where there is an immediate threat of serious injury or loss of life to enforcement officials, noting the U.S. moves were likely unlawful under the law of the sea. So that's the, like, just regular law for the sea there. I'm going to read not the whole thing, but a portion of this next part, because it actually goes into what we were just talking about as far as like for terrorist organizations and that how that's used. Are U.S. strikes on alleged cartel members legal? Experts have also questioned whether the killing of the alleged members of the Tren de Agua cartel could contravene international law on the use of force. Under Article 2 of the UN Charter, countries can resort to force when under attack and deploying their military in self-defense. Trump has previously accused the Tren de Agua cartel of conducting irregular warfare against the United States, and the department has designated the group as a foreign terrorist organization. As of February 2025, the U.S. Department of State did a designation on international cartels, specifically Tren de Agua, MS-13 cartel. There's like 8 or 9 different cartels that they have designated as foreign terrorist organizations, specially designated global terrorists. What that enables them to do is to use a lot of the laws that were created during the war on terror in order to go after these organizations. And that's their legal framework for this. What's just interesting to me is, like, anytime you think about like lethal force from the U.S. government, there usually has to be a direct threat to life, or the other thing they like to say is U.S. interests, right? Generally U.S. life, though. So yeah, just interesting, right? That seems like what they're doing here, designating all of the cartels, foreign terrorist organizations, to be able to use them and target them under terrorism laws.
So my question, or the thing I'm thinking about, these are drug runners, right? Let's take them at their word and say these are drug runners. These are people trying to bring drugs to the U.S. Okay. There's also, you might call them, another terrorist organization called the Sackler family that is responsible for the opioid epidemic in this country, right? If we're calling this group from Venezuela that's trying to bring drugs over a terrorist group because they're bringing drugs, what are we calling the Sackler family? And why are we solving the Sackler family problem with a lawsuit rather than just blowing up their house? And we're just blowing up these boats from Venezuela, right? The hypocrisy, the discrepancies don't make any sense. It's not about drugs. Like, prove the terrorism or shut up about it. Like, I don't know. How do they get away with this slippery designation of terrorism?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Like, if you're going to do this, then the intelligence that supports it in some manner needs to be released, like in a way that shows, like, how are these 11 individuals directly threatening the lives of American citizens on this boat 11 miles off the coast of Venezuela that might not even come to the U.S., right? It doesn't exist. It's not there.
Yeah. And to Joe's point, like, if the cartel families had lobbyists, it wouldn't be an issue. They would be settling it in court.
That's what this is. It's just pressuring them to try and bribe the Trump administration.
They need an IPO of stock too. Then
I was talking about it the other day. We were talking about bookies. What's the difference between a bookie and a casino? It's just the government doesn't get their cut. That's the main difference. I mean, there are regulations and stuff that go into it as well, but that's fundamentally the government's problem with it, is that the bookie doesn't give them their cut. And I don't know, I see a similar comparison here with definitely. Venezuelan drug runners and the Sackler family, who doctors all over the U.S. prescribe their opioids.
Yeah. No disagreement there. I guess the last comment I wanted to make on this in general, and if you guys have any closing out thoughts, but, we talked about USAID and kind of soft power the U.S. has used since World War II in the form of, giving people money, or like the implied threat that you won't get aid if you don't do what the United States wants you to do, right? Like that's kind of what they've done. But this is, in my mind, also an example of this, plus Department of War, is an example of the type of power that the Trump administration wants to wield. They don't give a shit about soft power. That's not their thing. They want to rule through intimidation and fear. That's how they want to do things. And in my mind, this is just another example of them doing that internationally. Like, we will kill you if you don't do what we want you to do. And we can do it foreignly right now. I don't know. That's kind of like what I'm seeing here too. So
no, it's a good take. And like, I talk a lot about the perspective of ruling class versus everyone else, but within the ruling class, there are meaningful nuances between, like, there's infighting within the ruling class, you know. There are pragmatists in the ruling class who want to have a sustainable power that lasts a long time that they can control carefully. And those are the people that use soft power. Those are the big D Democrats, essentially. And then there are the scarier types in the ruling class that just want to break things and scare people and do it quickly and as messy as possible. So yeah, you're definitely seeing those two very different kinds of tactics play out. Tired of playing guesswork with your community's cohesion? Do those new faces in the neighborhood give you a little twitch? Introducing the Citizen Scanner, a revolutionary mobile app from ClearSight Technologies that cuts through the polite smiles and gets straight to the truth.
Oh, I used to wonder, is that guy walking his dog actually from here? Why does Mrs. Henderson always get so many packages? Now, I just ping them with my phone. The app gives me all their scores, social alignment, media consumption, even their preferred brand of hummus. It's like having X-ray vision for patriotism.
The Citizen Scanner is powered by a proprietary predictive algorithm that cross-references public data with real-time behavioral metrics. Get instant color-coded threat assessments, social compliance ratings, and activity flags for everyone in your vicinity. Our Harmony Alert feature even automatically reports individuals who consistently deviate from optimal civic engagement.
Imagine the efficiency. No more awkward conversations. The app tells you exactly who to trust for your block party, who to avoid at the bake sale, and whose recreational habits might require a gentle nudge from local authorities. It's community building, perfected.
The other day, my son's new teacher got a yellow flag for frequently watching foreign films. I love that I didn't even have to think about it. The app just handled it. Now I can focus on my gratitude for our school system.
The Citizen Scanner, because you can't build a better tomorrow if you don't know who's building it with you.
ClearSight Technologies. Scan, trust, thrive.
I guess this RFK stuff is always, you know, I heard that this, like now in Oregon, I mean, I'm sure everywhere, right? The COVID-19 vaccine, like, is requiring a prescription or whatever.
Yeah. And our insurance is I thought there was something else too. It's going to make it like way more difficult for, because pharmacists can't prescribe it, right? Like it can't just be given like by a pharmacist directly now.
Yeah. And what was it, like Friday evening, maybe I read something that was like, RFK Jr. is going to try to link autism to Tylenol. It's like, okay.
That's such a weird, like, why, like, what? Like, why Tylenol? Like,
He put himself in a corner. He was like, I am going to find the cause. And then he has to come up with something.
Yeah.
Oh, man. We've got to have more intelligent conversations about autism and mental conditions and stuff like that. I saw the funniest video on TikTok, but somebody who's probably our like mid-30s-ish, maybe a little bit older, was going to visit their parents' house and saying like, okay, for context, our parents, our mom always says like, this autism stuff didn't exist back in my day. This autism stuff wasn't around. I don't know what's causing it or whatever, but her house is the most eclectic assemblage of little knickknacks that nobody's allowed to touch or use. These are my special little spoons. These are my special little cups. These are my tiny little things. And she's got all these little collections. So autistic. So autistic. But autism didn't exist back in my day. Like, just because a category comes in and tries to explain something doesn't mean that the phenomenon just started. Like, I don't know. It's so hard to talk to people about that stuff.
I love that. My dad was mentioning something pretty similar with his dad, my grandpa, and he had like this bookshelf of like organized books in specific order. Nobody could ever touch them. If anybody touched the books, he would like yell at them, like, I know the exact spot. They're in this spot because of, you know, whatever. And it's like, yeah, just because it's undiagnosed doesn't mean it. Yeah, exactly. It didn't happen. And then I just thought, like, my mind spun to, like, historical, like, what happened in Rome? Like, you know, with autism and ADHD and all these, whatever, bipolar, whatever, obsessive. Yeah.
Socrates was severely autistic as a he would just stand there and drool for like 12 hours. Like,
Yeah, totally. Asking questions to people, that's all he's got.
That RFK interview, though, or not the interview, but the hearing was, did you watch some of the clips from that? Yeah, it was like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren both ripped him apart. But then so did like actually there was a Republican who was a doctor that I guess had an issue with him the first time, still voted him through. But like, yeah, so there's like multiple people that like were just ripping into him. It was pretty great. It was good to watch. It felt good anyway to watch, though he's still there. So I don't know.
Yeah. I saw our Senator Ron Wyden said something to the effect of like, you know, you say you're trying to protect children, but you've flown on Epstein's jet several times. Like, that's laughable, you know? So it's pretty good. And he has like, RFK Jr. has killed children. He has like taken away vaccines from children like in different countries. Like, it is just unbelievable the damage that this guy's causing. And every time you ask him, he's like, I don't know. Like, what is, he's like, he looks close to death.
Oh, Behind the Bastards did an episode on RFK that was really interesting. It counted up his death count, right? Like, and I can't remember what island it was, but yeah, I can't remember if it was the measles vaccine or something, but yeah, basically resulted in the death of tons and tons of kids. Highly recommend listening to that one, but just for like the story about cutting off a whale's head and putting it on top of his car with his whole family in it and like bringing it back to his house. Yeah. Like just dropping a dead bear in Central Park.
We should never elect another Kennedy. Like, don't, like, we've learned, I guess we didn't elect this guy, but no Kennedy should ever hold power again. No Clinton, no Bush, no Trump. Get rid of the families. How about just like individuals who have values?
I like it.
jury selection for the presidency. How about that? Presidential roulette. Let's make it fun.
Yeah, and just like limit the power. Why not?
Yeah. Oh, man. So I guess for the last topic that I want to talk about this week, well, actually, you're talking about protecting kids, and your senator asked about RFK on the Epstein plane. So I guess my question is, do you think Trump would push the Texas National Guard into Chicago, Illinois, in order to distract the entire world from the Epstein files? Or would he do this regardless?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes.
Exactly. Yes, and.
Yeah, so like over the weekend, or I guess last week, just the rhetoric coming out of the Trump regime, just basically saying straight up like, yeah, we're going into Chicago. J.B. Pritzker, the Illinois governor, has basically said multiple times like we did not ask for this. We don't want them coming in. And actually, I think what he's also been saying is kind of like, we would accept help from the federal government for law enforcement if it was traditional like law enforcement. Like if you want to send some people to help us that are actually police and like federal law enforcement that we can work with to work on crime, cool, let's do that. We don't want the National Guard coming in and occupying our city. And so this is it looks like the next city that Trump is going to try and push the National Guard into. I think they originally said that they thought it was going to happen over the weekend, but I don't think it did, right?
According to Ken Klippenstein's leaks, the documents say, the subject of the document, it's from U.S. Department of Homeland Security for the U.S. Department of Defense, request for Department of Defense assistance in support of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement removal operations at Naval Station Great Lakes, Illinois. And it says that DOD, in-state in this document, DOD facilitates the use of Naval Station Great Lakes for 30 days of operations in the Chicago metropolitan area, with the advance party arriving September 2nd, 2025.
Okay. So they're there planning, but they haven't necessarily gone into Chicago as of yet. That's what it looks like then. Advanced team. Okay. Yes.
Related to your question about Trump, I dropped a YouTube link that's like 16 seconds if we want a funny thing to watch and talk about. But it's a Chappelle Show skit.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
I feel like Chappelle is so relevant in so many different ways. It's so good.
What about people who say you're only interested in the Middle East for oil?
What? Huh? Oil? Who said something about oil? Bet you cooking? Oil?
Yeah, so Trump going into Chicago is Chappelle knocking over all the shit on the table and running away. Like, here's something else to think about.
Oh, that seems right. Only it'd be like ketchup, I think, right? That's like the only difference there. I'll read a quick thing. This is also from The Guardian, and it's on the Chicago piece here, so I'm not going to read the whole article, but just kind of like the first couple paragraphs here. This was from Maya McDonald. This was Friday, September 5th is when this came out. Chicago gears up as Trump troop deployment looms. We aren't helpless, is what it says. City on edge as Trump threatens to send in National Guard, but organizers and residents are taking steps to push back. Communities are on edge as the long-discussed arrival of federal law enforcement and ICE agents in Chicago is reportedly set to begin in the coming days, marking the potential start of a contentious period of federal policing in the Democratic-led Midwestern city. Donald Trump deferred his commitment to sending federal troops to the city as an effort to curb violence and homelessness on Tuesday. Oh, wait, that's interesting. So curbing homelessness is also a goal here. I don't think I'd heard that specifically. I know that's what they did in DC, and then that's what the executive order enables, but I hadn't heard that specifically called out as a goal, so that's interesting. Calling it a hellhole and saying that though troops would be headed to Chicago regardless, the city's mayor, Brandon Johnson, and the Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, should be calling him personally to ask for help. If that were to happen, Chicago would become the second U.S. city to receive National Guard troops after Trump declared a national emergency and deployed about 800 troops to Washington, D.C. in August, having previously sent the National Guard to Los Angeles in June. We're going in, Trump said about Chicago. I didn't say when, but we're going in. The statement came in the wake of Chicago's Labor Day weekend, during which nearly 60 people were shot and at least 8 killed, which some experts have said could be used by the Trump administration as further justification for sending troops. Though the shootings marked the city's deadliest weekend this summer, the overall number of violent crimes has continued to drop in recent years and has remained at its lowest levels in the last 4 decades. Murders committed from June to August totaled 123, the city's lowest number in 60 years, according to analysis. There's a lot more in this article, including the advanced team of 30 agents that are undergoing crowd control and flash grenade training at Naval Station Great Lakes in north of Chicago. But yeah, that's just the current status of what's going on. Similar story to DC in that like crime is actually down, right? And yet we continue to use this as the justification. And now apparently homelessness is enough of a justification to go into Chicago and send the National Guard to round people up. Like, what are they going to do with these people? Like, what are they going to do with the homeless people in Chicago?
13th Amendment immediately comes to mind. And, you know, if you can accuse someone of any kind of crime, you can make them a slave according to the 13th Amendment. As long as they've been convicted of a crime, there you go. There's free labor. So that's one possibility for the homelessness part of all of that is, you know, it could be some sort of bullshit vagrancy type crime. I don't know what the laws around camping are called, but, you know, trying to camp without a permit or some bullshit like that. And there you go. There's some free prison labor.
I think that's a good moment to also remember habeas corpus, right? Like the show me the body, like you can't just be disappeared without due process, right? We read the Constitution last week, and I believe that's in Article 1. Habeas corpus is directly in the Constitution. It can be suspended in cases of rebellion or invasion, which is why Trump keeps trying to say we are being invaded by, you know, I think it was MS-13 trend out. Like that's why he's using that language, because he wants to suspend habeas corpus so that he doesn't have to do due process for these people that he's grabbing. But at the same time, is he doing it anyway? Like the Constitution doesn't talk about you must be a citizen in order to get this. You're in the United States. You're a person here. You're protected by the Constitution. And he's still doing this anyway. And nothing.
I've seen some of that content online where people will go to Trump rallies and stuff and just talk to people in the crowd about different issues and everything. And there's a lot of general confusion about habeas corpus and citizenship. And someone will ask, you know, a person in the crowd about, what about due process? What about habeas corpus? They're like, oh no, that's for citizens. They're illegals. They don't count. And it's like, literally, you don't understand what you're talking. Like, they're a human being in this country. They deserve due process, period. Doesn't matter what their circumstances are. They're a human being in this country. They deserve due process. Like, period.
Yeah. And And again, just going back to the framing, or what was used as a rhetorical framing of why, we needed to elect Republicans, because they're going to protect the Constitution, because article, or like Second Amendment, like talking so much about how the Constitution is so important, but as soon as you're in power, just ignoring the parts you don't like. Yeah. So it's all bullshit. Like, and just realizing that it's all bullshit is step one in acceptance, I think.
Yeah, I remember like earlier too when this habeas corpus due process stuff was getting brought up, and Trump was in some live interview and he said, well, we can't do that. That would be so expensive. It's just too costly. You can't go through the process with everybody. And it's like, then like, pivot to like now where it's like ICE's budget gets increased 11 billion. It's like, well, what do you have money for, I guess?
But what's scary is that, like, I don't know, when you said Arthur, it just immediately reminded me of a few weeks ago when we talked about the Planned Parenthood decision with the Supreme Court in that South Carolina case. And that was Neil Gorsuch's reasoning in his majority opinion for the conservatives in the Supreme Court, was basically like, if we allow average citizens to sue their states and to take that to the court federally, it's going to be too expensive and costly, so we can't do that. Yeah. And so the Supreme Court is with Trump on that issue, and that sucks.
Yeah, and like to your earlier point about like this class war, it's like, which side of the fence are they on? Which side are the individuals trying to challenge their state on? It's so blatantly obvious.
That we can't afford it line, like it's the same one that's used in a lot of Republican town halls when talking about cuts to Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. It's like, oh, we can't afford this, like our country can't afford to provide these entitlements to these people that are in basements not working, and like, all that scary language, or like the language that's intentionally there to try and make people feel like they're being taken advantage of by other normal people, not by the government and those in power, right? Like, thankfully, in some of those town halls, people see through that and just like, that's bullshit. Like, they're calling it out, booing the representatives. Like, we have enough money for this. We're the richest country in the world. How do we not have enough money for these social safety nets when every other developed country, I mean, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but for the most part, has universal health care and ways to take care of their citizens? That just doesn't pass the smell test. I don't know.
Yeah. I know they defund the schools, and then they want to occupy the cities with National Guard, where they defund the schools and they have brand new armored trucks and contracts for this kind of invasive technology. And it's just ludicrous.
Yeah, at a certain point, it just gets so absurd and insulting to the average person's intelligence. Like, they're just playing in our faces and daring us to call them out, and people are going to start calling them out, which they are. And then this is where, like, I don't know, when it gets so contentious, I get worried about the resolution, because people are only going to take so much. I mean, CLR James makes this point in the Black Jacobins, because when the slaves revolted in Haiti, they raped and pillaged all the white settlements and like were brutally taking over the island. And he was like, CLR James was like thinking about the critics who were like, oh, well, they went too far, they were too excessive in their rebellion or whatever. And I wish I could remember the exact line he has, because it's well written, but it's basically, the point is like, when we look back on the history, I'm not going to be so amazed or so distraught by the terror that the repressed group enacted on their oppressors. What I'm more amazed by is their patience over the long run. The fact that they put up with it for so long. That's what's more astounding. And so once that breaking point is reached, that's what I worry about, is like, how bad is it going to be? Because like, people are going to snap and not put up with this. And we've started to see some of this. I mean, people have been going down to Alligator Alcatraz and attacking the facility. And like, there was that other incident in Texas where those people like literally just shot up that, I think it was an ICE facility in Texas. And who knows what's going to happen in Chicago this month. Like, it's going to get bad. People are not putting up with it much longer. And so, yeah, patience is running out. So now we're going to get to see what people will do when they run out of patience.
Yeah. Which is, I really want to find this, because when I was reading through the Constitution, there was a line in here that I don't think I'd really picked up on before, but just based off our conversations, maybe you guys know off the top of your head, but it was something to the effect of like, we understand that man will put up with injustice for a very long time, which is why we must have these checks and balances in place, because like it was something that was actually, I was like, oh, that's kind of enlightening, right? For the time, people will put up with a lot of shit, even if they're oppressed for a very, very long time, right? If that's the system that's there, which is just interesting because, like, you know, if we saw that back then and that was part of the framing of the Constitution, that is clear, like, we don't want people to get to that point. We want to be able to control and make sure that everyone's happy, but rapidly approaching that point. And then also, Joe, like, we're talking about slave revolts, but we can also just look at France, right? And what was the French Revolution, right? Like, they killed a ton of the ruling class, right? When it got to the point where inequality was so crazy. And I think we've well surpassed what that difference is.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the French Revolution was the inspiration for the slave revolt in Haiti. They got news about the French Revolution, and they were like, wait a minute. We're way worse off than y'all are. Like, what are we doing here? And then that's when it happened. The wait is finally over. Join us this weekend for the grand reopening of the Capitol History Museum, now curated by the National Heritage Narrative from Heritage Vault.
For too long, learning about our nation's history has been an unnecessarily confusing and uncomfortable experience. That's why we decided to go back to the basics, combining facts with history and leaving the politics out of it.
It's practically a brand new museum. We will be unveiling new family-friendly attractions and changes to almost every exhibit. At the reopening, you can re-witness and relearn about every one of our nation's triumphs and moments of undeniable heroism.
We're taking back history written by the victors as any victor would.
Our new exhibits present a consistent, unified story, ensuring every visitor leaves with a clear sense of identity and purpose.
Join us for the grand reopening celebration starting this Saturday. The past has never been so clear.
Heritage Vault, our history unified.
So I know we said that was probably the last thing, but the very last thing for this week. We wanted to show a clip real quick from Brian Tyler Cohen, who is a progressive content maker. I saw this clip online and I really thought it was probably the best one that put together some of the strangest reactions from Trump regarding Epstein. And I think it did a really good job. So wanted to play this and then get your guys' reactions and thoughts.
A very, very bizarre update about Trump and Epstein. So Speaker of the House Mike Johnson was asked about Trump's insistence that the Epstein scandal is a hoax, and this is how he defended the president.
And he's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down. The president knows and has great sympathy for the women who have suffered these unspeakable harms. It's detestable to him. He and I have spoken about this as recently as 24 hours ago.
Did you catch that one line where Mike Johnson seems to claim that Donald Trump was an FBI informant about Epstein?
He kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down.
So that we're clear, Mike Johnson is now spewing straight up QAnon talking points. The excuse that the Q crowd uses is that Trump didn't spend so much time with Epstein because he was his friend. He was merely there because he was so righteous, so virtuous that he was taking him down. See how convenient that is? So when you see videos like this, just remember it was all part of the plan. But hey, while it might look like Trump is buddy-buddy with a notorious pedophile, in fact, he was doing the opposite and taking him down. Convenient, huh? Of course, that doesn't explain any of Trump's bizarre behavior as it relates to Epstein, like this.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world.
Or meltdowns like these.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time on it? Do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is. I really don't. And the credible information's been given. Don't forget, we went through years of the Mueller witch hunt and all of the different things, the Steele dossier, which is all fake. All that information was fake. But I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going. I think really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going.
No, it's I call it the Epstein hoax. It takes a lot of time and effort. Instead of talking about the great achievements we've had, a great gentleman yesterday, as you know, went on CNBC and he made the statement that Trump may go down as the greatest president of all in the United States. And instead of talking about the things we've achieved, we've had tremendous achievement. They're wasting their time with a guy who obviously had some very serious problems.
Technical hoodies are awesome, but bro, they make you look like a mountain douche.
You need the Bearskin Tactical Hoodie 4.0 to get comfortable in the wild. It's the ultimate 10-pocket utility hoodie for fishing, golf, hunting, camping, boating, or conquering foreign lands. Thousands of men trust the Bearskin hoodie to block wind and repel rain for incredible comfort and breathability wherever you go. Because the average hoodie made these days is weak, flimsy, and it has one weirdo kangaroo pocket in the front. And listen, you're not a kangaroo. You're a man.
We need to up our ad game here. This is
this video
that's really good.
We want to offer you percent.
Yeah, I almost wanted to just let that play out because it's more ridiculous than what we do.
I thought somebody was doing a psy-up on us.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
that's crazy.
All right. I'll play the rest of this really quick. Okay.
Or the fact that he was so desperate to distract from Epstein that he floated the idea of arresting Barack Obama and Beyonce and Kamala Harris and Oprah. He tried to relitigate Hillary's emails. He threatened the Washington commanders, floated denaturalizing Rosie O'Donnell, and started posting the most blatantly transparent Truth Social post like this, where he wrote, "What's going on with my boys?" and in some cases, gals. They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's doing a fantastic job. We're on the team MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and selfish people are trying to hurt it all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, it's Epstein over and over again. Yes, all very indicative of a guy who was definitely, totally not friends with Epstein, but rather was just trying to take him down. Got it. The reality is that every obfuscation, every lie, every deflection is one more example of the lengths that Republicans like Mike Johnson will go to protect a man who is implicated with a pedophile ring. Mike Johnson, this pious figure on the right, has now fully dedicated himself to ensuring that Trump's links to a pedophile remain hidden. He's not only spewing QAnon propaganda to muddy the waters, but don't forget that he literally sent Congress home to avoid having members vote on a discharge petition to force a vote on the release of the Epstein files, which, by the way, they did anyway.
The Washington establishment is asking the American public to believe something that is not believable. They're asking you to believe that two individuals created hundreds of victims and they acted alone, and that the DOJ has no idea of who else might have been involved, that nobody else did anything that rose to a criminal enterprise. The American people know that's not true. Now, the Speaker of the House just offered a fig leaf to my colleagues. They're going to vote on a non-binding resolution today that does absolutely nothing. I appreciate the efforts of my colleague, James Comer, who's leading the Oversight Committee. They may find some information, but they're allowing the DOJ to curate all of the information that the DOJ is giving them. If you've looked at the pages they've released so far, they're heavily redacted. Some pages are entirely redacted. And 97% of this is already in the public domain. So I'm calling on my colleagues. Be one of the next two who sponsors this discharge petition. I think it's shameful that this has been called a hoax. Hopefully today we can clear that up. This is not a hoax. This is real. There are real survivors. There are real victims to this criminal enterprise. And the perpetrators are being protected because they're rich and powerful and political donors to the establishment here in Washington, D.C. So today we're standing with these survivors. We're giving them a voice. And I want to close by thanking them. They are brave. I hope they encourage other survivors to come forward.
So while these people love to beat their chests as the party of family values and fillet themselves over how godly they are, their actions matter a hell of a lot more than their words. And their actions betray a sick obsession with deferring not to the victims, but to the perpetrators.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is so confusing and chaotic, huh? How she's like in the background there, just like standing with the survivors, and she's like, I'll name the names. Like,
yeah. Her and Thomas Massey, and wasn't Boebert jumping on that too? Like, this is like, yeah, it's weird. It's like the original like MAGA. It was the first class of MAGA. It came in during his first administration, is now like trying to actually get the truth out of us, or they see something here. So I don't know. It is interesting. It was before I watched this, but you just mentioned it, Arthur. But yeah, I think the survivors are planning on putting together a list of everyone that they know that was involved. But the concern was basically that if they publicize that, then they could get sued, right, by these people that have way more money. So yeah, apparently Massey and Green are saying they're willing to read the list on the House floor under basically congressional immunity, testimonial immunity. So that's what they're threatening right now if the rest of the information doesn't come out. And they are getting a lot of threats from the White House for daring to, do such a thing.
Hope they get to do it before they get murked.
Yeah, I just felt that the guy who did that, Brian Tyler Cohen, just did a great job with getting all of those specific clips in order. I haven't seen them paired together like that before, but yeah, man, he just continues to look so guilty.
Yeah, that one scene where they were like in the, I can't remember what the name of the room is in the White House where they do those cabinet meetings, rest and everything, where Trump was like, Epstein? You're still talking about Epstein? It was just like basically the exact thing that Chappelle did in the skit. Like, I don't know, it was so on brand.
It was the same table. Yeah, totally. It was. Yeah, it's kind of vile how they just you can kind of see like the timeline of like how they kind of know like this knowledge is going to come out. And so it's like deny, turn it into a conspiracy. Then it's like frame it like Trump was an FBI informant. Then it's like, you can just see the playbook and it's.
I believe he's an FBI informant. Like, that's my part of the conspiracy theory that I believe. But I believe it's because he was involved and got caught by the FBI and he turned on Epstein. Yeah.
I mean, when the head of the FBI, Kash Patel, writes a children's book about Trump and like how he should be king and how people don't respect the king, whatever. Like, you think he's not willing, do other stuff for his king?
And then you've got the deputy, Dan Bongino, who basically had like this successful podcast because all he talked about was Epstein. And now he's the deputy of the FBI.
I think it's interesting, like how you at the top of when we were getting together, I don't know if it was recording or anything, but, you were talking about this like club in DC, and how, these elites potentially might go there. And it's like to have this narrative of like what this guy Massey was saying of like these two actors creating these hundreds of victims, and like it's just exists, like pedophilia is just on this island. It's like it's actually in the US still going on, and the top Republican donors and probably some top Democratic donors, whatever, are engaging in it.
Yeah,
definitely going on at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, I know. That's where they're like originally where some of these people were sourced, like Virginia Guff or whatever. Yeah. And this is not the way that some innocent person acts. Like, if you're innocent, don't you just hand over and open up everything?
Yeah. Immediately. Yeah.
Right. Like, we haven't mentioned it today, but I feel like during all this break we've had recently, there was also all the stuff that Trump was almost dead, like, or soon to be dead.
And something about
having a heart attack and they're hiding it, and like, I don't know. There was all that we haven't talked about either, because people were having the optimistic take that when he dies, if he dies, he's like the glue that holds all of these weirdos together on the right wing right now. And if he goes away, they're going to turn on each other fast and start pointing fingers and cutting deals behind the scenes, and whatever organization they have while Trump's alive is just going to kind of fall apart.
Sorry, Joe, you cut out just a little bit. Were you saying that that's what people are hoping for, or we think like, if Trump dies,
just like an
that?
optimistic. Yeah. And like, oh, if we don't know if he's dead yet, but if he dies, here's one optimistic way to look at the aftermath of that, is that they're not going to be able to hold themselves together if he's gone.
Yeah. And actually, I think one of the, not rumors that came out of that, but I guess just the news around that whole thing was like JD Vance came out and said, like, I'm fully prepared to take on like the office of the presidency if I need to. But then going back to our previous topic on Venezuela, JD Vance was asked about that, and someone was like basically accusing it of as being a war crime. And he was like, I don't give a shit what you think, if it's a war crime or not. Like, so it's like, I don't know if he's trying to be more brash in order to possibly, if Trump does go, like try and take the mantle. But I mean, he's clearly the pick for Elon and Peter Thiel, like, and their hopeful goals and whatnot. But yeah, it was interesting seeing, like, I was actually, that was while had my phone off. So I think that was like the last thing I saw before I turned it off, was like a rumor trending that Trump died. And I was like, just going to turn this off for 2 days and see what happens. Please stay tuned for a word from our sponsors. Howdy, folks. Are you tired of feeling vulnerable? Tired of being unprepared? Well, come on down to the Bunker Barn. We've got everything you need to outlast anything life throws at you.
That's right, Paul. Whether it's a social squabble, a market crash, or just a bad Tuesday, we've got you covered.
That's right. We've got bunkers big and small, from our cozy cottage model to our cavernous community compound. They're sturdy as a stallion and sealed up tighter than the real footage of the moon landing.
And we've got all the fixins. Our shelves are packed with Patriot Protein, Freedom freeze-dried foods, and our famous MRE-licious meals. They're so good you'll forget what real food even tastes like.
We're not selling survival. We're selling peace of mind. Get yourself a tactical toilet, a bulletproof Bible, and a couple dozen gallons of our Just Add Water.
And don't forget our Prepper Pack promotion. Buy a bunker and we'll throw in a free copy of the book, 101 Uses for Ivermectin, and not one of them is for a horse.
So what are you waiting for? The future's coming and it's not looking very friendly. Get prepared and get to the Bunker Barn. The Bunker Barn will be here when they are not.
I saw that the West Coast Alliance, with this whole like really politicized CDC guidance of stuff happening. Yeah, the West Coast Alliance is like, emerged California, Oregon, Washington, and then I just read recently, I think on Friday or something, that Hawaii was joining too. So it's kind of cool that, they're like bulk buying these vaccines and creating their own guidance around this. And then it's also kind of sad that the CDC and the RFK Jr. stuff is, dismantling a really credible system. So good and bad.
I like that's so interesting and cool, because it's like that's one like legitimately useful thing to see, as a parallel structure. Instead of waiting on the U.S. government to get its shit together and to take care of people and to do what it says it's supposed to do, you create a parallel structure. And that's what mutual aid is all about, is taking care of people's needs without needing to depend on the government. And that's what got the Black Panther Party in trouble way back when, is they were giving people free school lunch and stuff, and the government was like, no, we're going to do that now. So parallel infrastructure is actually a useful revolutionary tactic, and that's really interesting to see.
Man, I hope there's a push from the East Coast to either do something similar or to partner. Like, that would be, because the CDC, they fired the head, and there was a shooting at the CDC that nobody like really talks about. Like, that just completely went under the radar for the most part. But I do hope there's some good coming out of that, but it also makes me nervous, right? As you see parallel structures build up, like with these blue state governors and whatnot, like the more that happens, I don't know if that pushes you closer to, conflict, like, and drawing the lines of that conflict. But either way, like, something has to happen. We can't just let this craziness like direct like what's going to go on. And if those states do have like some sort of agreed upon vaccine schedule or shared resources and whatnot, the people that are going to be the most hurt by all of this are the red states. Like, that's where disease is just going to skyrocket, like measles, like whatever. Like, if Florida is taking away all vaccine mandates for children, like that recently just came out, like, I'm not going to visit Florida anytime soon. I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely never going to make it to Disney World.
Yeah, and there's always that news story, like annually or whatever, about like Disney World itself, and it's like measles, polio breaks out, whatever. And yeah, Florida with this whole like it's like what, schools aren't going to be requiring vaccines at all now or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, removing all mandates. Yep, all vaccine mandates.
Okay,
and comparing compulsory vaccination in order to attend schools to slavery. So, but they can do that because it was a black Republican that said it, so it's okay. Like, so it works out. Yeah.
It was like the governor of Texas. I remember he signed some, like, he was in a wheelchair, right? And he signed some act to like stop building ramps into, whatever. Like, it's exactly the same thing. They find the people like that to do that.
Yeah. It's fine. He'll just be carried like on a gold thing, like by some peasants. Yeah. So he doesn't need to worry about ramps. Jesus. All right. Well, this has been a good catch up, guys. It's nice to talk to you both.
Yeah, same, man.
Any closing plugs? Anything that you guys would like to highlight around you, or anything that you want to tell the listeners before we log off for the week?
Find some joy in your life. Find some. Every day, find some excuse to be joyful about something, even if it's small or stupid, even if it's just laughing at how stupid the world is. You can't let these fascists take our joy away. It's the only thing we've got sometimes.
Agreed. I did want to give kind of a quick update on our podcast numbers, since that's something that we've been providing to everyone every so often. So I think last time we talked, we were just at 500 unique listeners that have downloaded an episode. So now we're a little past 755 unique listeners and just under 1,500 downloads. We've got downloads in 25 countries, every continent except for the Antarctic or Arctic. Which is it? The Arctic continent?
Antarctica.
Antarctic. Okay. Yeah. So that one, we don't have anyone there somehow.
Well, isn't there like 10 people there, like 10 random scientists or something like that?
And we can't get one.
Yeah, and a pyramid with aliens, of course.
Yeah. So if anyone knows the 10 random scientists in Antarctica, if you could get one of them to just download an episode so we can say we have all 7 continents, that'd be great. And then in the United States, we have 34 states plus DC that have downloaded and listened to some episodes. Top 5, do you guys have any guesses? I think we kind of went through that before, but top 5 states that are listening?
California, Oregon, Washington, New York, and Massachusetts.
Joe, any thoughts?
Same, except replace Massachusetts with Maryland.
All right. Close. You're both very close. Number 1's New York. That's a little bit over 40% of our downloads in the United States. Then California, followed by Maryland, Virginia, and Washington. Oregon is still number 6.
So embarrassing.
So close.
Okay.
I think it's because all your friends and family listen to this on streaming and they don't actually download any episodes.
Good.
That's my theory. Yeah. Oh, man. But anyway, yeah, that's all I've got for kind of updates today. I'll just channel Noah for a second. Support your independent media and find those good, reliable journalists out there that are doing the work. And yeah, if you can support them. Because we need to know what is occurring from some sort of reliable source. Can't continue to rely on CBS, which is now, Department of some propaganda or something. Like, I don't even know. We've got people from the government there. So yeah, cool. All right. So that's it for the week. That covers our episodes for this week. Thank you for listening and hanging out with us over the week. If you like the show, please share, subscribe, and, bring anyone else along for the conversation that might enjoy what we've been talking about. On, next Thursday, we've got our second episode of our book club dropping for Dawn of Everything. So be on the lookout for that. And if you have the time, leave us a review. All of that helps us get seen and helps the show grow. So thanks again for listening. Stay aware, stay safe, and remember that propaganda loves you.